Hey everyone, this is Matthew James, one of your co-hosts here on the Presales podcast. And I'm really delighted we had Adam Bauman back on the show today. Adam and I had the chance to chat on one of the Presales Collective's Unscripteds. So quick shout out for those. Make sure you're seeing what those are all about. But Jack, I thought the conversation was really interesting today, hearing all about what it's like to become a pre-sales person from a non-pre-sales background.
This is something that I care a lot about. Hi everyone, Jack Cochran, one of the other co-hosts here of the Presales podcast and general manager of Presales Collective. And I love this topic of kind of non-traditional roles of getting into presales. I feel like everyone you talk to will say, oh, I have a non-traditional path, but we rarely explore the aspect of, well, what about your previous role made your current role, like moving into presales, beneficial? And how do you take advantage of that? And those are the topics that we dove in today, that if you're trying to break in, this is a good conversation. And I also think this is a really good conversation, especially if you're in leadership, because I think there's a lot of things that we miss sometimes when we dismiss people for lack of pre-sales experience. And I think that's something we talked about a good amount today that I think is very important.
And Adam had been a people leader in some of his last roles. The way I think about this is like walking into your kitchen at the end of the week. You've maybe got some smattering of ingredients left around. Every single person that comes into this career has a set of ingredients. Those are the skills that they've built throughout the career that they've brought to this point. You're going to have some things you need and a couple of things you might need to run out to the store and get. And we talked about the kinds of things that Adam brought in and where he would recommend the person who's looking for that next pre-sales role or a first pre-sales role to upskill themselves.
Adam's held roles in engineering. He's had VP titles, people leadership roles. He's hired. He's been an engineer himself. He did everything before moving over about 5 years ago into pre-sales. He's currently staff solutions engineer at Kong. And so he's definitely got the big mix there, has seen a lot of it and talked to both things. So great conversation. I don't want to stand too much in the way of it, but before we do go over to the interview, Matthew, anything that I forgot to bring up?
The last thing to mention, make sure you check out Adam's LinkedIn for a little treat.
Cool. Well, don't do that now. Do that after the episode, which we're going to get to right after the break. Before we jump into today's conversation, I want to tell you about something I'm genuinely fired up about, which is SoulCon 2026. In case you don't know, SoulCon is our flagship conference for solutions professionals. It's going to be August 26th and 27th in Chicago, with a pre-event mixer the night before on the 25th, in case you're flying out, join us the night before as well. This year's theme is strategic impact, driving change inside your own org and helping your customers get deals done in a buying landscape that's shifting very fast. It's 2 days, 3 different tracks, and sessions built for the way you actually work. There's one of many that I keep looking forward to, but what I'm really excited about is Ron Whitson and Chris White running a workshop called Busy, Liked, and Ignored, the Pre-Sales Leadership Trap. It's about why the very strengths that get you promoted can quietly stall you as a leader and how to build real influence instead. I'm looking forward to that. I hope you are as well and you want to join. And here's the best part. This is the year to bring your team. Grab a group of 3 or more on your team and you're in at just $549 a seat. Learn together and walk into September ready to make an impact and finish your year strong. Head to the link in the show notes to grab your seats. I'll see you in Chicago. Adam Bauman, welcome to the Presales podcast. So glad that you're here.
Great to be here, Jack.
I'm excited for our topic today because I myself and many people have taken kind of non-traditional paths into presales, but your journey is one that I'm hearing a lot more people have interest in, which is coming from more of an engineering background. I think it makes sense, pretty viable, especially with the rise of like forward deployed engineers, seem to make that kind of interesting as well. So before we kind of hop into the why and maybe what you would have changed, could you just, Adam, walk us through what was your experience transitioning from engineering into pre-sales? And along with that, what were kind of the moments and realizations that you had that you realized, hey, this was a good career shift as you were doing it?
I don't think many people that I know that are in pre-sales or sales engineer, solutions engineer, whatever you want to call it, had a plan to get there. And I'm in that same boat, right? Like I was in engineering for almost 20 years. I was doing software engineering. I was doing management. I was actually a buyer of software. And I think I just got to the point where I wanted to be more social. I wanted to be more in front of different customers. And I just sort of went out on a limb and decided to join a former colleague of mine over in the pre-sales. And yeah, I just kind of got thrown in the deep end. I knew how to do a little bit of coding, so that helped. But for the most part, I was learning all about how to give good demos, which I thought I could give good demos, but I realized I had no idea what I was doing.
Is there such a thing as a traditional path into pre-sales? So Adam, what drew you in at first?
I think mostly it was working with different companies and different types of products and different types of just problems people were solving. And historically, I'd been in one silo. Yeah, we did different things in my jobs, but for the most part, we were doing the same thing. We were working with the same team, and you just like a rinse and repeat type approach. And that wasn't, I don't know, I just needed a new change. I mean, I've been doing it for 20 years. And not to say I thought I knew everything, but I wasn't as challenged as I wanted to be.
So I'll be a teacher grading your quiz. How much rinse and repeat do you do now?
Not a lot, honestly.
Not a lot in pre-sales. I agree.
I mean, sure, I'll do the same demo scripts. We have scripts that we put together, and you're supposed to, talk about the tell, show, tell, and where's the background, here's the value that our customers are seeing. But especially with the different AI capabilities with Claude Code, skills, plugins, a lot of that stuff can be generated, and you got to get creative about how to use it, how to leverage the new tools. I have to learn all the new tools and all the new terminology that my customers bring up. I mean, to be honest, I'm looking up stuff a lot of times because I've never heard it before. And I used to get self-conscious about that and think like, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing. But that's just part of the role now, I think. Unless you're selling one particular product that does one thing and you have one persona that you're selling to, which I don't think is very common, you got to learn as you're going and also sound confident in what you're doing. Like you asked about what is something I've learned throughout the process is that projecting the confidence and that you know what you're doing, even if you don't have an answer, that you'll get an answer is kind of a big thing about the role, I think.
That's something that I think stops a lot of people from thinking they have what it takes to be in a solutions role, because they're thinking, I don't know all the answers. And clearly the people that do this role know all of the answers. We don't talk about enough how much it's our jobs to figure out the answer. And we don't know things. Like often walking into the room, like you're saying, like the number of times when I was starting out where I didn't have quick tools, easy access to figure stuff out, I'd have to be like, you know what? I don't know. I'm going to add that to my list, the growing list of things I'm going to get back to you on. But even then, no one was ever mad at me for using that line. And nowadays, you can usually find out, get an answer, and have something to tell someone by the end of a call, or even in the moment, if you can just throw something somewhere and get a quick response back. There's a lot better tooling now to help with that. If you don't know, knowing's not a prerequisite anymore.
But at the same time, sometimes that question is not a question worth digging into, if that makes sense. You know, not that the customer doesn't deserve an answer, but sometimes it's like, should our software do that? It probably shouldn't, because that's outside of the scope. Or does this ever really happen? Right? Like people ask those tech flex questions of, oh, well, can it do this with these sort of HTTP3? Does it support that? And you're like, do you even use that? Like, what are you talking about here? And that's where sometimes understanding from a pre-sales perspective, understanding who's in the room. Are you talking to someone who built a software you're trying to replace? That's usually somebody who's going to be an adversary. Are you talking to somebody who's more technical and there's actually a business person in the room that doesn't care about that thing the engineer is asking about? So figuring out what you do need to follow up on, and can you shortcut that without having to waste the time doing the research?
This wasn't me. This was another brilliant SC that was shadowing at the time. Had a situation like that come up you were describing, where someone was asking a super technical question. And there was a business user in the room. And the SC turned to the business person and said, "Do you ever use that?" Like asking the business person if they use the technical thing. And they were like, "No, we definitely don't need that."
Do you really need an integration to the SpaceX API?
I guess from a pre-sales perspective, you phrase it as, is that going to block the success of this project? But really in your mind, you're thinking, does this block the decision to buy my software? And if the answer is no to either one of those questions, then we can follow up, but it doesn't seem like it's that critical.
I mean, it's almost a whole other topic, but it also gets into, sometimes it's good to not do something if it's not important, because customers don't like paying for things they're not going to use. And so that gets into, if you have that person in the room who's asking you all those questions and you try to answer yes to everything, all of a sudden you sound like way too complicated of a solution for this simple problem we're trying to solve. So it can actually work against you to say yes too many times as well.
Yeah, and trust, right? Like if you say yes to everything, nothing does everything. And you lose trust of that, the trusted advisor part of the role. And I think one common problem that I've got into, and I've seen people with less tenure get into is they think the product can do it. So they start demoing and clicking and going down a path of, can I find that setting somewhere? And now you're completely lost. And now you're confusing yourself. You're confusing the prospect as well.
Everyone loves a demo of the settings menu as well. So,
oh yeah.
Or command line settings are always.
Oh my goodness. Yes. It's just a simple command line execution. It's easy.
You're talking about the ability to scope engagements really well, not just from a product perspective, but also understanding where this buying journey is going. Is that something that you drew from your engineering background? And what else did you find came over really naturally from engineering into pre-sales?
I think I learned by not going down the right scoped path of what I was trying to buy when I was part of a buyer, or when I was a more technical evaluator, spending a lot of time working on things that we never use just because somebody in the business asked, does the software do that? Or the previous software did it once, like 5 years ago, and they wanted to make sure we had feature parity. So that understanding that you really need to scope that down going over to the pre-sale side was important. One thing also that helped transition, and again, I'll probably pull from being the buyer side rather than being the engineer, was figuring out who makes the decision and how do I get through that. And, I learned along the way, we got to get legal involved early, like certain things that I think from a pre-sales solutions engineering perspective, a lot of people don't think about is that last step, the step that gets you to the end. And sometimes AEs don't think about it. And that's where I can come in and go, yeah, our legal team takes forever. If the AE doesn't ask that question, I do think it's a partnership. And I think the SE needs to understand that you shouldn't just give up as soon as the technical win happens. You should pay attention the whole time, because there's a lot of things that you can actually help with that most SEs don't think about.
Legal conversations, I find, are definitely into that bucket. And once the technical win comes around and not everyone has context, I don't know if this resonates with you, but typically when I'm in a sales cycle that has a large group of buyers, yes, you get the technical win. That's probably your product team. Maybe that's a business sponsor. Then there's a procurement team, and then there's a legal team who probably don't have the benefit of all the context you've been working through for the last however long the deal cycle has been going on. Is that correct from your experience as a buyer?
From my experience as a buyer, yes. There's usually the people in procurement, especially what I can't stand is when you get into procurement and the procurement team says, don't talk to engineering anymore. Like, you can't talk to engineering. It's over. And you're like, why? I've been influencing the deal the whole time. And there may be things that they're not explaining to the procurement team that they need help with. It's like, well, I want to help them. I'm not trying to influence or trick them. And I think from a buyer perspective, getting that help from the pre-sale or even the whole sales team, right? Like, if you can give me that business value, you can give me the ROI calculator, you can give me all the information. I just literally slap my brand on and pass it on to procurement, legal, whoever the buyer is. That makes my life easier. Don't make people's life harder. Make it easier for them to make the decision. And I think one thing that we left out talking about is like security teams. Legal teams are important. The financial teams are important. But the security team is most of the time, when I was a buyer and a lot of times as being a seller, they're the ones who just say, nope, we're not going to do this. And so making sure they're involved early, or just making sure people that are going to be after the technical win involved in pushing the deal across the line, they're involved as early as possible when it's like a real thing, like not obviously on a disco call, but when it's a real thing.
As you're talking about it, I'm trying to think through, like, clearly you've got a good sense now for like the process, getting things through the deal. One thing I remember from when I was trying to build a team and when I was looking for new people to bring onto my team, I was always faced with the pressure from my boss to say, make sure you hire someone who knows sales, pre-sales. They can hop into the role. You don't have to teach them how to sell. You don't have to teach them how to be a pre-seller, which meant a lot of people who are in where you were in or in similar positions where they're not in pre-sales, they're kind of locked out of that because the expectation is, well, I got to jumpstart people. But when you had those knowledge gaps, how long did it take you to understand what you were doing, where you could take your engineering stuff and kind of pair it with the sales stuff? Like, how long did that transition take you before you felt like you were confident in a discovery call, in a sales call, and things like that?
Well, I'll let you know when that happens. That's my answer. No, I think the level of confidence, because you got to have confidence in the product. So you got to be understanding product when you go to a new team and understanding that's the case. I would say I feel like when I truly feel comfortable is when I feel comfortable working with the AE and when I feel comfortable working with the product. And so it's more than just, I know how to sell. Demoing is key, discovery questions, asking that. But I've worked with new AEs or AEs that I haven't worked with before, and it doesn't gel. And you're talking over each other, and I don't feel comfortable with that. So I think it's more than just that. But maybe I think what you're kind of getting at is someone who's not in sales. When do you feel comfortable being in sales, or a little bit more comfortable? And I think it's when you screw up and you know what you should say, what you shouldn't say. It took me probably a good 6 months after my first SE job to learn that I should not explain everything. I should not explain the details and the inner workings of everything that the customer asked, because most of the time it's a checkbox and they just need to know yes or no. And the more you explain, the more you dig yourself into a corner.
If you learn that after 6 months, I know SEs who've been doing this job for a long time who haven't learned that yet. So that's pretty good. I'd take that for sure. We love explaining. So telling us to not do it when someone asks a question where we can explain it, that's tough, even for a seasoned SE.
And that's an engineering thing. That's a hard thing coming over from engineering, because that's what you're expected to do, is explain all the different things. I do think I had an advantage because being in that buyer or the buyer mentality, I learned pretty quickly. One thing that I think SEs struggle with is where's the value in what we're doing, and not just, oh, well, that's the wrong way to do it. Architecturally, that's the wrong way to do it. Okay, but by doing that architectural design decision and conversation, are you going to miss out on something? And there's more business value in just doing the thing that works. And then the other side of it is also being able to prove that it's valuable. And what metrics are you going at? How do we prove those metrics? From engineering, you have OKRs, but most engineers hate those. What's the impact of the software that I'm building? I think they like it when they see it, but it's not built into their nature to be able to quantify what they're doing and how it's impacting the business. And that's the only thing really that matters when you're selling software to someone, is how is this going to either save me money, make me money? That's it.
Really, that is it. And you've been able to say that so concisely. Where did you get that understanding of business value from? And for someone who's listening who maybe doesn't have as much of a commercial background, what tips would you have coming from something else?
I think just personal use, I do different things. I invest in real estate properties and figuring out, do I buy software that helps? Do I list things on Zillow? And what software do I use? And do I have to pay for it? And how much value is it getting me? Today, it's Claude. I'm paying for Claude, and I'm paying $100 a month for Claude. What is this doing? For the first 6 months, it was making my life slower. And it was just the same thing as doom scrolling on Claude. What could I do with this? Oh, it's cool. I can make this application that does something that I don't care about. But that's it, right? I'm paying $100 a month to build things that don't do anything for me. I switched to using Claude to help me sell the things that I don't use anymore in my basement. I have all these old routers and computer stuff. And I just laid it all out on the floor, and I took a picture and I said, help me sell this. And that's more valuable than the application that I built on some server sitting down the basement that checks my email and does nothing with it. But, that's the sort of thing. And you'd be surprised how much you can get for old Amazon Echoes. That's the easiest thing I've had to sell. I have a stack of them, and they sold right away. But the other things, Claude helped me understand pricing strategy. And overall, it's, do you use software? And if you do you pay for it? And what's the value that you pay for it? Are you getting that out of it when you go look at your budget? It's the same thing that a business is going to do.
I love that approach, because anyone can do that, right? Take a look at your Spotify subscription. What are you getting out of that? Because that hits at the thing that we actually tend to overlook in business, which is that the personal thing that someone gets out of something is probably more valuable than the business thing that someone would get out of something when they're buying it, right? The personal thing that impacts my role is almost more important sometimes than what the business as a whole is going to get out of it. And so, you know what? I might go through my bills this weekend and take a look at all the things I'm paying for and what am I getting out of it?
Well, even better, use Claude to just take a picture of your bill.
There we go. Just dump it all in there.
Yeah, I've given up on the not sending Claude information. It's out there.
I think that was their plan the whole time. Just get you to trust it. Eventually, you're just going to trust it. It's fine.
I'm looking into other software, AI software that can partner with being a pre-sales engineer, and how do I make myself more efficient? And I was messing around with one yesterday that was a AI avatar thing where you can just, I could be on right now and I'm sitting somewhere and not in my office, and it could do that. I'm like, all right, well, how much is this? How much is it worth it to me? Could I do other things? My boss isn't going to pay for it because he's like, you should be in your office. You should be doing stuff. But if I could be like, oh yeah, I'm doing that, and I'm also working on other demos where it looks like I'm doing this, but or I'm traveling. And if I'm in a meeting when I'm traveling and I'm in a hotel room and I've got my iPad, there's a second monitor, it's just not your setup, right? Like you can't do the demos the same way. But if I could do that all on one screen, but the camera looks like I'm in my office, I don't know, maybe there's value for me there, but what do I get out of it, right? It's not necessarily the business. And I think buyers are the same way.
I love your approach you're taking. I can hear the engineer, the methodical approach to thinking through a problem, which is such a useful solutions skill set to have that honestly, unless I was sitting down and doing a half-hour podcast with everyone that I was trying to interview, might be something that's missed. Now, granted, you interviews, but interviews are so scripted, and I think almost they're tough to get through. So if someone is sitting here and they're going, you know what, I feel like I've got, maybe it's not engineering, maybe it's a couple of the things that relate really well. How do you communicate, or how did you communicate the value when you were applying for your pre-sales job? And how can people make sure that that comes through when they're interviewing, when they've got other skills that they know are going to be useful in pre-sales?
Honestly, it's curiosity, it's asking questions. It's treat it like you're not just on an interview, but you're actually trying to sell software to someone. Make them feel like this is the experience that a customer is going to get, which is being yourself. It's bringing out a little bit of your personality. That's really important. And I think a lot of hiring teams look for that. They don't want a robot. These are things that you learn in pre-sales. These are things that you just, when you're on a call with or you're talking to someone, get excited about things. If you want the customer to get excited about the software and what they're doing, you need to be able to get excited about who you are and what you can bring. And whether that's not a specific bullet on the job description, that in itself, I think, is something that's usually not on a job description, but also usually really important in the decision making.
That's very true. It's crazy how the answer to a lot of how do you help yourself with this comes to, well, it's doing pre-sales in a different way. You are 100% selling yourself. You never go into any customer going, the only 7 things you asked for are these things. That's all I'm going to talk about. Like, you're going to spin this towards the best version of your software. Present the best version of yourself, whether or not they're asking for it. I love that idea.
It's remote. I am really embarrassed by my background. I mean, I look at Jack's background and I'm like, oh man, he's an interesting guy, right? Like he's into music. I can tell those things. And I'm like, I have lamps.
Is that interesting in quotes? I just got to know, because I've been told I'm interesting in wrong ways sometimes.
No, I think the only way that you would say something is bad when you say interesting is when you're talking about food. When you're at a restaurant and someone says, how is it? It was interesting. You're like, that's not good. People, movies, so take it positively, I guess is what I'm saying.
I'll take the compliment. Thank you.
But that's part of your personality, right? Like you're a person that is into guitars. But yeah, it's selling yourself. And at the end of the day, people want to feel like they want to work alongside someone. And so if you can show that you're somebody who is interesting, somebody who is easy to talk to, I think that's kind of the big thing that, again, these are things that are not on job descriptions, but I've worked with a lot of coworkers that it's hard. I don't want to be on the one-on-one call. I don't want to be on the status report or onboarding or team meeting because you're just boring or you're just, I don't know what, it's just not exciting to talk to. And the colleagues that I love working with and the people that if they went somewhere and recommended that I join that company are the people that I don't even realize we've been talking for an hour and a half. And we've been talking about this project that I'm working on. Can you help me with it? Are you learning this new part of the product? What should we do here? Now we're talking about work, but it doesn't seem like it. It seems like we're just having fun.
You talked about things from the candidate side, and I think that everything you've mentioned on those soft skills is so important to pre-sales, and you won't find them written down in a job description. What do you think about from the recruiting side? Are there any changes that you'd like to see in the industry on how we can select the best pre-sales people who might not necessarily be doing a job that has pre-sales in the title today?
I've worked in a lot of different companies as a hiring manager, and there were rubrics around what you're looking for. And I haven't found so far, I mean, and I'm sure that's just the companies I've worked in, but not as rigorous of a rubric around sales as there is around engineering. Now, that could be because engineering is more analytical. There's more specific skills that you're looking for, but I don't necessarily think that's true. I think there is a set of questions you should ask. There's a grading of the answer. And so when it comes to recruiting, so I guess I'm going into the hiring and the interviewing process, but I think they're tied together, is figuring out how will this person do on these answers. And I think a lot of times it's just they look at their LinkedIn and say, this person's been doing it for a while or they've been successful. I guess a lot of times in technical sales, they've been an engineer or worked in that space. Like if you're in a CRM software that you're going to sell, oh, you worked for another CRM company, even if you're an engineer. Checkbox, you're going to pass the first couple of rounds. That's not necessarily always true.
Yeah. I've seen rubrics in other areas as well. And it's something I agree I would like to see more. I know there's a lot of pushback. A lot of the sales industry is still very subjective hire based, which can lead to other biases, can lead to other bad hiring practices. I would love to see more of a formalized, not industry standard, but why not? Like, let's start shipping something that can be an industry standard, because the number of conversations I have on this podcast where the similar things keep popping up, the similar things about what makes someone good in the solutions role, it's not that unique from company to company. It's very transferable. A rubric would just help solidify that, I think. I love that take.
What I've learned in engineering is that also helps with the promotion process, right? You've got things that if you hired, you build that out for hiring a senior, staff, principal, whatever the titles are, 1, 2, 3, I don't know, everybody has different ones. But whatever it is for your interview process, you take that and you look at or even the junior or senior engineer, a solutions engineer, pre-sales, could look at that and go, this is what we're looking for when we hire a staff. I need to work on that. I want to be at that rubric, and it's translation across both internal promotions and hiring.
100%. It solves a little bit of that first conversation of how do I get from where I'm at to the next level that everyone wants to know, for sure. Before we go, I do want to ask you two things. First of which, if anyone wants to get a hold of you or wants to chat with you about some of this stuff, how can they find you?
2 ways. LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. It's probably the only social media thing that I really follow that much. So message me as long as you're not trying to sell me something or a recruiter. But if you're actually interested in talking and learning things and sharing and collaborating, I'm happy to do that. I'm also in the Presales Collective Slack channels, pretty active there. So always willing to meet up with people and, again, have conversations around it. Those are probably outside my work Slack and email. Those are the 2 channels that I check the most.
Perfect. Easy to find. And last question before we go, Adam, what would be kind of your final advice, final tip, maybe a hot take for our listeners?
I would say if you're not in a situation where you feel like you're qualified to be in pre-sales, but you're interested in it, I would say go for it. And it may be not the easiest thing to get into, but I don't think any job is really the easiest thing to switch into. It's fun. I would say go for it. Don't hold back because you don't think you don't have the experience to get in.
Great advice. Adam, thanks so much for joining us here on the Presales Podcast. It's been a pleasure.
Great talking with you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Presales Podcast by Presales Collective. Did you know that we also post on the Presales Collective blog following each episode? Head there to read through information on shows you might have missed or find another past episode to listen to. For more information on the Presales Podcast itself and to listen to those past episodes, visit presalescollective.com/podcast.